The Devil and Us, a memoir of you and me. Everything you think you know about evil is wrong.
Morning.
Well, good day, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Bruce McDonald, and this is the Talamanca Review. It's 1:06 p.m. here in Costa Rica, Monday, the 22nd of April. What a world. One dare only look at the media and get the daily updates as to what form of calamity is going on here. We are just going to keep on with the definition and understanding of darkness and the devil as it's given in The Devil and Us, a memoir of you and me, now available on Amazon. So light and dark have formed the motion that creates all time and all events and all history and everything that will ever be in the present framework of reality. It's not all just light and dark, but light and dark represent the most visible aspect of the positive negative charge, the positive negative polarity that creates all of the spin and motion down here. Okay? It's inescapable. And light and darkness have been incorrectly taught to us. And I suspect that this is deliberate. Okay? Easiest way to control a people is to get them to believe something that is untrue. Okay? Collective false mythology is a control fulcrum, as is ideology, in which there's no mythology, there's no connection to a higher reality. It's just the ideology of the reality of living. This would be communism and various forms of autocratic dictatorship. So we have to ask the question, if light is the birth of life, then darkness is the placenta that it lived within until it was born. No placenta and no life. Darkness is equally responsible for everything that's created. Darkness is the womb of creation. Okay? So creation comes through darkness. That's why when you look up at the sky at night, it's largely dark, except for the pockets of light that are stars and planets and other things that are visible to the eye. Darkness is the womb of creation. Creation and reality is born out of darkness. Okay? That, I think, once realized, has to be respected. Okay? It has to be respected. Now, conventional human understanding states that darkness is not an entity in and of itself, but simply the absence of light. This is what physics teaches. Can you imagine that? We can build a quantum computer and we can build a super collider, but we can't get the basics of light and dark right. So we're building off of a false foundation. Darkness is, in fact, an entity. It can speak. It has a language. It can host life. It's a form of consciousness. It has its own consciousness. It has its own purpose in creation. It's a created thing. It's not the absence of creation, but for we human beings, it's still the superstitious repository of all of our ignorance. Now, darkness is half of our reality as human beings. It's half of the creation for us on Earth. Think about it for a moment. The planet we live on and the planet we were born on is half light and half dark. It's split down the middle. If that isn't the perfect indication of a binary system, I don't know what is. If you go to the North Pole or the South Pole, you'll find 6 months of dark and 6 months of light. If you come down to where I live, near the equator, you'll find that there are 12 hours of light and 12 hours of dark every day for all 12 months of the year. And that's, I think, about the most balanced environment a human being can live in, is close to the equator. And there's, I think, some esoteric reasons for that as well. Please don't take that to mean that life cannot flourish and people cannot prosper and grow and be creative in other parts of the world. That's not at all what I'm saying. Okay. But there's something special about living in the balanced life of the equator. It's the most regular environment on the planet and probably the most balanced and hospitable for human life where I live. So it's no exaggeration to say that for us human beings, darkness is half our life. Okay. Why would you spend your entire existence being afraid of half of your existence, half of your reality? Why would you not explore that? Well, because somebody told you not to. They told you not to because that's where all the answers are. They're in the darkness. Okay. Let's look at it from a consciousness perspective, from the perspective of a mystic or a contemplative or meditator or somebody who prays very well. To break into the inner reality, the awakened imagination, to open the third eye, you have to go through your own darkness. A lot of people give up on the inner journey because the first year is too difficult. They think, oh, spiritual life, I'm going to feel good. This is going to make me feel good. It's going to be like a strawberry sundae, a banana split. No, no. As these falsehoods are cleaved off of us and as we're forced to confront them in the stillness of meditation, because the psychological stuff that is blocking you pops up first in consciousness. And you have to go through all that darkness. You have to understand that darkness. And what happens in that process is you forgive everybody as best you can. You forgive everybody that's been a part of making your life more difficult or more painful, because you have to forgive. It's the only way, because there's a reason and a purpose for everything, even if we don't understand it in the moment. I coined this phrase about a decade ago. It's a good line. I throw it out once in a while. I'll use it now. Tragedy is spiritual pornography. Okay? So the concept of tragedy from a spiritual perspective is pornographic. Tragedy shouldn't exist. It's a defilement of what's really going on in life. You could say, well, it's the human perception to human loss. I'll accept that. And if you want to nurse the idea of tragedy, that's fine. But realize you're wrong. There's no such thing as tragedy. Everything that happens to us has a purpose. Our life here is a projection from another dimension. The vast majority of the experiences we're going to go through in a single lifetime are known to the incarnating soul before the body is assumed. It's planned out. Okay? Absolutely planned out. So if this is all the way it works, then how can we perceive tragedy? And how did Western consciousness come up with this idea of tragedy? Well, the Greeks did, right? Now, tragedy is when a bad fate befalls a good man. Okay, so Arthur Miller, in Death of a Salesman, wrote what is ostensibly the only tragedy of the 20th century. We can't write tragedy anymore. It ended at the end of the 18th century. It didn't make it into the 20th century. We don't have tragedy anymore because we don't feel that way anymore. Some people think it's because we've become more corrupted, we've become more dark, but no, no. Everything going on around you now in the world, all the chaos, the wars, the deprivation, the calculated depopulation, this is the physical manifestation of the darkness you have to go through to awaken as a spiritual being, which simply means you come to know, not believe, but know that you are a being independent of this body. It's not a really super hard accomplishment. You don't have to go all the way back to cosmic consciousness or God consciousness. Really, all you have to do is start kicking around up on the astral plane and you'll get it figured out. It's not an unmanageable spiritual goal, the transcendence of the body. And once the body is transcended, we're able to live life completely differently. We're able to own our lives. We're able to find great meaning and purpose in mundane things. We're able to live in the moment. And these are all gifts, spiritual gifts. Most people don't live in the moment. Most people, if you study, for example, the North American life, used to be, but the system's collapsing now. I think Gen Z is the generation that's going through this darkness. Okay, so they're going to come out the other side and they're going to have to reform and rebuild this world in some way because all of these negative systems are coming down now, beginning with the money system, which is completely negative, absolutely and utterly negative. Okay. Let's reference this in the Abrahamic lineage, okay, from Judaism to Islam. Jews aren't allowed to charge interest to another Jew. Muslims aren't allowed to charge interest. There's talk of a halal mortgage, an interest-free mortgage being introduced in Canada for Muslims under the Trudeau administration. On the one hand, I think it's a fantastic idea, but I think interest-free loans for a home should be extended to everybody, regardless of their religious affiliation. But that's what Trudeau does. He's a divider. It's what he does, right? He's a pure politician, pure political animal. Nothing around him, if you look at it, is held together by consent. It's all held together by various forms of leveraged consent, whether it be the NDP alliance, the Green Party alliance, or all the little alliances he forms to form a pseudo majority, a number of votes to get legislation passed in the House of Commons. A very dangerous time in Canadian history. Okay? Now, Trudeau believes in tragedy. So this idea that tragedy exists and people have to be helped and people, sure, if you want to do it for your own spiritual benefit, if you want to give unconditionally in a form of service, if you want to go work in a soup kitchen, if you want to go work for Doctors Without Borders for 2 years, I think that's fantastic. But you're not doing it for the people you're going to work with. You're doing it for yourself. Be honest about that. It's a spiritual process. It's a spiritual purification process. You're doing something for other people. This is always good. Always, always, always good. So, do you really think that a creator would fabricate an existence for us as a sentient being on this planet only to be occupied half the time? If we existed midway between the moon and the earth in a space station, darkness would be the vast majority of our existence, except for the dim light cast by the earth below and the moon above. But down here on the earth, everything is half light and half dark. Now, this book, The Devil in Us, A Memoir of You and Me, is in fact the thesis of darkness. Okay? So that brings us to the end of this chapter in the book, and it's one of 12 chapters. It's about 7,000 words per chapter. I'm going to continue to talk this book and the topics in it on this podcast, and we're going to move away from the devil. We're going to move in, but the devil needed to be understood. You got to understand that this idea of a supernatural being trying to control steal your soul is, how would I put this? I'm not saying that that's not going on, but it's not the devil doing it. It's not the devil. Okay. So there are things in creation in non-physical form. There are beings and entities as dark or darker than the character we call the devil. I'm not saying that that level of negativity doesn't exist. I'm saying the theology is wrong, and it's major league wrong. It's not just a little bit wrong. It's completely wrong on the theory of darkness and the devil. So let's recapitulate. Let's review this chapter. So the devil is a divine being appointed to do his task by the Creator. Divinely appointed. not in rebellion against God, not in rebellion at all. The rebellion stories are extraterrestrial stories. You have to understand that everything goes to extraterrestrials at a certain point. Now, our own spiritual journey where we can go and become pure light, that's real. Nothing false about that. There are videos on YouTube of elderly Tibetan monks leaving their physical body and literally in front of a camera transforming into their light body and disappearing. You can see it with your own eyes. And we're a spiritual being. So why would somebody do that? Why would somebody form this theology? Why would the early church in Byzantium, in the Council of Nicaea, why would they form this doctrine? Why would they take out reincarnation? Why would they consolidate the devil? Why would they do this? Well, it's my position that it's a theological empire. Remember, Rome was an empire. It conquered by shield and sword. Warfare. Okay? Now, just because you don't wage war anymore doesn't mean that you've lost the taste for control, that you've lost the taste for entitlement, that you've lost the taste for pseudo worship from plebes. It's always existed. That is a class of incarnation on this planet. I think we all go through it where we get a set of incarnations where we are one of those people. And we get to experience what it's like to be a pope, a bishop, a cardinal, a rabbi, these sorts of things. We move around a lot. But when you get nestled into a certain soul group, you may be with them for a long time. So I would say that most of the Jews in Judaism now, minus the Ashkenazis, which are largely Eastern European converts from about 700 AD, I'd say the Sephardic and the Ethiopian and all of the Jews in the world now have been incarnating into Judaica since the beginning of the cycle, because there's a huge lesson tied into the identity and the culture for them. But enlightenment transcends culture. There's no such thing as an enlightened Buddhist. There's no such thing as an enlightened Hindu, and there's no such thing as an enlightened Jew. There's just the enlightened person. When they get to that point, they transcend the culture. They may maintain the pretense. They may grow the beard out, wear the beards, and wear cotton white shirts with no collars and do the whole holy man thing, or the black fedora and the black suit like the rabbis and the Jesuits do. But they're enlightened within that culture. But the enlightenment is their culture. It's not Catholic enlightenment, Jewish enlightenment, Buddhist enlightenment. It's just enlightenment. It's a nearly scientific process. Okay? And as I said earlier, that scientific process can't really be shared in the way other sciences are shared. It can be shared amongst practitioners. So if you're living with 500 monks in a monastery, there can be energetic transferences that are non-physical. You can dream together. A kind of super consciousness permeates the environment and accelerates the growth of consciousness, a kind of fertilizer, if you will. But I think it's best to do it on your own and go and see these people and talk to them and read their holy books and study them sincerely, as I've done. But in the end, you're on your own. Okay? Now, my definition of enlightenment is the realization that you're a being that transcends the body. You're a being that's using this body while it's in the 3D. It's just a piece of equipment, a piece of hardware, a brilliant piece of equipment. And an interesting thing about the body and the mind is we use these things, but we don't study them. We don't. So you could make the case that some forms of contemplative practice, like Ayurvedic yoga, are the study of these systems we live in, the body system, the nervous system, the memory, the mind, all of the energies that are associated with the physical incarnation. And the level of understanding they come to is absolutely mind-boggling and transcendent and demonstrably transcendent. Okay. Demonstrably transcendent, meaning they can warp and bend reality around them. Okay. These people are everywhere. Well, not everywhere. I mean, like there's probably none at Walmart in your town right now, but my point is that there's no human generation without them. And they incarnate in proportion to population. Okay. So we're never alone. And enlightened people don't always come out and teach and form schools. They oftentimes do other things, but generally it will be for the benefit of the whole. Absolutely for the benefit of the whole. So you have to understand darkness. You have to go through your own darkness, all of it, the epigenetic darkness of your bloodline, the curses that I had to deal with in my bloodline from centuries of Catholic Protestant fighting. In my Akashic readings, I've gone back to about 1300. I was born into a Scottish Catholic family, and I learned how to meditate at 17, turning 18, just based on seeing a flyer in a laundromat while I was washing the cloth napkins for a steakhouse I was a busboy at. Just saw it up there on the corkboard, learned to meditate. This is what happens when you meditate. And it was fantastical to me. And I said, I got to go see if that's true or not, you know? And that's how it all started for me. But my culture and my upbringing was Scottish Catholic, and it was unbelievably brutal. Right. In my experience, and I don't mean to hurt anybody's feelings. I really enjoyed the Shia LaBeouf podcast with John Bernthal. His podcast is called Real Ones. And Shia LaBeouf had a spiritual awakening and a conversion to Catholicism while working on a movie about Padre Pio, whom the Catholics claim was a 20th century saint. He got the stigmata, he got everything. Okay. And I respect that. I'm not trying to disrespect that, okay? But when you're born into Catholic culture and you grow up and you look at it, it produces a disproportionate number of sadists and masochists. Think about it. A sadist is somebody who likes to hurt other people, and a masochist is somebody who likes to hurt himself. Okay? And that's been my experience. I grew up in it. I have the right to say these things, okay? Catholicism produces a disproportionate number of sadists and masochists. And why do you think that is? You're born in a religion that tells you that you and your God have an eternal enemy called the devil. It's a lie. The Creator has no enemies. The Creator is a singular being. Our enemies are our mind, our culture, our family, and anything that limits us from realizing we're a spiritual being having a physical experience. That's our enemy. No devil. Now, some Catholic theologian may come along and say, well, Bruce, even though despite the fact that you were raised a Catholic and your mother was a Carmelite nun, we feel you haven't quite interpreted this theology correctly. Well, I mean, if that's the case, why do the vast majority of Catholics get it wrong? Maybe it's what you're teaching. Maybe I'm telling the truth. That the doctrine of the devil and the teachings of darkness in the Catholic Church are ridiculous. Okay? Possession exists, but even the way they deal with possession is ridiculous. Ridiculous. Okay? The vast majority of people who get possessed never even know they're possessed. Okay? And to say that these are all fallen angels, well, what are they? Are they the astral bodies of another race that was here that used to rule over humanity and disappeared in physical form but still exist in the earth astral? Is this what you mean by fallen angels? Higher beings who are trapped here with us? That makes a lot more sense. Why don't you just come out and say that? But when you tell people at the inception of creation, before even the creation of man, there was a rebellion against the prime creator, and 1/3 of his highest order of beings fell and rebelled against him and were cast down here. And we were created alongside them, created into this space where they had been cast down. Even when you think about that, how could that possibly be the action of a loving creator? Why would human culture and human civilization be placed on a planet that's already been occupied by chastised higher form beings who've been cast down to physical earth in spiritual form and energetically bound there and unable to leave in a state of torment? So that it's like some form of pay-per-view mixed martial arts spiritual fighting for a higher class of being watching what's going on this planet. Is this what we are? Some form of galactic pay-per-view UFC? Is this what you're telling us through Catholic doctrine and to a large extent Jewish doctrine? Because this is in the Kabbalah as well. Yeah, I don't buy it. My creator is perfect and makes no mistakes. If we are in fact down here with these dark beings, whatever they are, not fallen angels or whatever, and there are a lot of dark beings down here. I mean, read my books. Read The Light of Darkness. Read The Devil in Us. There's a lot of very dark beings down here. Okay, I don't deny that. What I deny is the theology. Okay? God bless you and have a wonderful day. I'm Bruce McDonald, and this has been the Talamanca Review. And after this, we're going to be moving on to something else. I'm going to take a look at the 20th century and how all of the scientific, medical, and educational institutionalization was setting us up for this moment we're in now, which is a critical moment for our survival as a species. Peace out.